Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe Salemi with DynaSCAPE Software, and today is the next installment of the Manage360 Masterclass, where our hope and intention is where we can help you get the absolute most out of your landscape business operating system. And today is webinar number 12. We're going to be diving into the ins and outs of routing. And we have our very talented and knowledgeable implementation and training specialist, Jordan Weir, with us today. How you doing, Jordan?
Hey, not too bad, Joe.
Good, thanks for joining us. In this session today, we're doing the ins and outs of routing. Routing is simply a way to make batch scheduling of recurring maintenance work a lot easier to schedule, but it can be daunting if you're new to it. This session in particular is going to break down into very simple steps, and by the end, Jordan is going to help us understand how to know when to use a route and when not to use a route, really. And maybe some ways just before I pass it over to better manage your crews, and this all goes along with setting up your routes. So first of all, systems, and not just necessarily using software systems to help make your life easier when it comes to scheduling and routing, but having standard operating procedures. So this is all of the steps that need to be followed when you're doing a particular piece of work, whether it's setting your schedule or developing your routes. Having SOPs is a big part of being successful in managing your crews. Develop routes that allow you and your teams, that allow your teams to have the right amount of time and ability to provide uh, the attention, the detail, and the customer service to each property that you maintain. Rushing them in and out may cause them to overlook something or forget something. So give them enough time without giving them too much time where there's idle time. So figuring out that fine balance. Organize your routes by geography and optimize them. A great tool that Jordan's going to be going over is our integration with Google Maps and the ability to optimize using Google Maps. Try to minimize non-billable time. Any time that your crews are working where you can't bill it to a job or a contract, is money out of your pocket. Track, report, and review crew performance. If you can't track it, then you can't report on it. And how would you ever know where you need to dive in to get better? So track, report, and review, and that you can get better just going that way. So I think this is really a good time to dive in. I'm going to pass it over to Jordan. He's going to take control of the screen, and he's going to give us all of the ins and outs about routing inside of Manage360.
All right, thanks, Joe. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now, and let's jump right in. So you can see here that I have Manage loaded up, and I'm on the routing page. So that is production routing. And so first off, I want to talk about what is a route and when to use a route. A route is basically a repeatable sequence of maintenance services by location. So the key word there would be repeatable. Mow trims, things like snow removal. If you're going to do them more than once, then that can call for a route. Some services like irrigation startups, they only happen once a year, so there's no need to really build a route. The route kind of just holds all the individual services that you're going to perform in the order you're going to perform them. And if you're going to do them once, then just add those visits to your schedule. And Fabio showed us how to do that in our session last week, the scheduling session. But with a route, we're putting them into the order we want to perform them, so we can do it over and over again. So let's go ahead and create a route. As you can see here on my list, I have a snow removal route, but we're going to make a brand new route together. And to do that, I'm going to hit the new route button. And this is going to be my mow and trim route. So this is a classic example of something that is routable. You're going to mow the lawn every week, and you're going to hit the same properties up every week. So why not put it into a route? So if you're going to go about creating a route this way, when you're basically starting from scratch, you need to make sure that you get all of these filters set up correctly in order to essentially get certain services onto your route. And so what I mean by that would be we need to pick and choose the services that can be a part of this route. So this is my mow and trim route, not my snow removal service route. So I'm not going to see any of those. I need to pick my start and end dates, so that way I know when this route is running for. And then also that determines the contracts that can actually be a part of this route. So if I have a contract for mowing from last year, it's not going to be a part of this route because I'm going to build this route for this year. And the same deal with frequency. I can only have weekly services on this route, not bi-weekly, not monthly. This is my weekly mow and trim route. There's another way to create a route that I'll show you in a little bit, and it kind of fills these options out for you. So you can kind of just choose situationally. It might be more convenient to do one way or another. But let's build it from scratch. So mow and trim, this is going to be a maintenance route. That's our only routable division, the maintenance division here. And so now I need to pick my services. And when I do that, I can click on this little box that opens up a drop-down list, and these are all of my services. And you can see here they're broken down by service category. So my winterization service is a part of the irrigation category. And so I'm just going to pick mowing. The other way I could go about it would be click this box, and it opens up your service categories. So I could add, by picking the mowing category, I could add all of the mowing services to this route. So this could be filled up with a lot of different services. I'm going to just take the ones off that I don't want there, just by clicking that little X button right there. So I've got my service assigned, and next I need to pick a crew. And you can actually leave the crew unassigned from this main page. And you can do that when it's kind of up in the air as to which crew is going to be taking it on a week-by-week basis. So if you have something that is a service that could be done by any crew, you might not assign a crew here and only actually start giving the crew assignment when you're scheduling the route. So you'd say, next week, crew number 1 is going to take it. The week after that, it'll be crew 2. That's what leaving it unassigned will allow you to do. But if it's going to be mowing crew number 1 most of the time, you may as well assign it. You can change individual occurrence assignments. So you could say mowing crew number 1 is going to do all the mows, but the odd time mow crew number 2 might jump in. But if we know it's going to be crew number 1, just plug them in there. And you can see that it says 3 crew members. That's because the actual crew in the settings has 3 members listed on it. And so we're going to see how that is going to come into play later. When we have a service, it's going to say, okay, well, this service has 3 hours of labor on it, but there's 3 people on the crew. So it's going to do 3 divided by 3 to give you 1 hour for the expected duration of that service. So we'll see that come into play in a bit. The start and end dates. So I'm going to start this today. We're going to start mowing today. And we are going to mow all the way until March 1st of next year. So this route is going to run for a little bit. It is going to be weekly. Now you can see that there's options here: daily, weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, and then manual scheduling. I'm going to give you a manual scheduling example later. But since this is a weekly mow and trim, I want it to have a weekly frequency. And once again, only my weekly recurring services that are mow and trim are going to appear on here when I'm building the route in a moment. So right now it's only including contracted included services, where the price of the service is included in the grand total of the contract. But if we want, we can also include time and material services. So if the price is to be determined at the time the service is completed, we can have those on the route or just hide them all. So we'll see that in a moment. And then planned day of the week. You can leave this unassigned if you want. It's not terribly important, but if you're always going to mow on Monday, just put Monday in there. And when you go and schedule it, it'll say, did you want to do that on Monday? So that's all that does. I'll leave it unassigned for now. So I am going to save my mow and trim route. And once it is saved, it now exists, and we can start building it in more detail. So right now, we can see this area right here. This is called the route waypoint list. So our waypoint begins at our company location. So this is actually within settings, my company information. It's where you plug in your company's address, and that's what appears here. So we're going to start at 1326 Butter Road West in Ancaster, and we're going to end there as well. If we need to go to a different location, maybe you have a yard that is somewhere else, or the crew should start or end somewhere other than this location, you can just manually type in that address, and then the route will begin from that location. So the crew is meant to start here, and then from Butter Road West, move out to the first location. So there's nothing on here yet, just our starting and our ending points. All of the individual services that we can add are available to select right here. So as you can see, there's 7 of them, and we're not including time and material services right now. If I did, then there's 8 that are available. All right, so I'm just gonna leave it like that. Now, when I am taking stuff off of here and putting it onto my waypoint list, a couple ways to do it. You can drag and drop, right? And then so now I've got Mark and Anita going first, but I can say, Adam James, you're going second, or maybe I want you to go first, and I can just drag you around into whichever order I prefer. The other way to do this would be hit this little globe icon, and it's going to open Google Maps. And so as you can see here, this is Burlington in Ontario, and I can zoom out a little bit. And here are, in the little green waypoints, all of the addresses that are available to be put on this route. So we have a mow and trim for Rita Durdos, located right here, and that could go on our waypoint list. The black dots are the services that are already on the route. So those are the ones that I dragged over. And then this little box here, this little net, is going to grab all the services within the net, all the locations within the net, and add them to our route. So as you can see here, we got a nice cluster of properties. And then this one is the outlier. Maybe we don't want to have our mow and trim route include Jason Benavidez out in Hamilton. So we're going to drag that net over here, and then this one is no longer included. So the net is a really easy way to capture stuff to add to the route. And within the net, if there's any that you don't want to include, just click on it. Now that's not going to be on the route, even though it's under the net. And we can do the same on the outside. Now it is going to be on the route. So it's really easy to select stuff using this method. Once I'm done, I hit add to route, and then they're all brought over. So once again, there's that duration right here. So I was talking about that earlier, how it's 3 crew members. So each one of these properties actually has 3 hours of production labor listed, but since we got 3 people, it only takes 1 hour to accomplish those 3 hours because 1 person per hour. Now I can drag these properties around if I want to get the proper order, but I can also hit this optimize button, and this is also going to hit up Google and request an optimized order. So through Google's routing system, it will say, okay, we're going to, since we're starting at Butter Road West in Ancaster, we're going to go here, and then the best way to go would be Burlington, Oakville, and then dip back through Burlington on our way back to our ending location, and then we end up here. So it'll move stuff around, give you an optimized order, you hit apply, and then it automatically moves everything around. Another thing to notice here would be all of these services are called mow and trim. This one is mow and trim and bag grass clippings, but then you see it also says mow and trim underneath. This is the display name of the service. So within the cost book, when you're creating your services, you have the option for an internal name and a separate display name. So most of the time, these ones have the same display name as their internal name, but we gave this one a special display name, and that way it's just showing us what the original name of that service is, so we don't mix anything up. So I now have my waypoint list set up the way I want. A few other things though, we can search by name or job number within this list right here if we have a bunch of services and we want to try and look for one. There's also this filter button where we can look for a preferred day, a region, a city, an account type. Really useful if you have this kind of setup. Region in particular. You might have a lot of properties that you take care of their mowing all over the place. But if you have them broken down by region or by city, but region would be even more specific than city, depending on what you choose to label as your regions. But when you pick that here and apply the filter, it really narrows down your search results and just helps you quickly find everything you need to find. We also have here show services on other routes. So let's say Lynn Edwards was already on a different mowing route. By default, Lynn would not appear on this list to be added to this route because Lynn's already on another route. You don't really, it's assuming you don't want to have the same person on two separate routes because one should be enough to take care of it. But if you do for some reason, you can hit that little checkbox and it's going to display all the services that are already added to other routes. So using all this, we're able to pretty easily build a waypoint list and determine the order that we want to tackle these properties. So once you have that built, you can go ahead and save the route. And once you've saved it, you can actually start scheduling it now. So before we go into that, I want to show you the other way to build a route, and that would be by going to our routing menu. And so first off, we have our routes tab that just displays all of the routes we've already built, and that's where I came to hit the new route button to get starting on my mow and trim route. But the next tab is to be routed. So on the to be routed tab, you can see that there are a lot of properties listed along with the services those properties get. So Jason Benavides has a mow and trim and holiday lighting that is not yet on any route. And if I would like to add it to a route, I can say, oh, this mow and trim got missed in the shuffle, so I'm going to hit add to route, and it's going to say, okay, well, you could put it on this mow and trim route. That's an eligible route for this service to be on. Or we can make a brand new route based off of all the settings for this service. So it would be within May 16th to March 1st, 2020. It's going to use the weekly recurrence pattern and use the mow and trim service. So all that stuff that I put in there initially, all of the start and end dates, the weekly frequency, the service, that can automatically be filled out if you use add to route to make your brand new route. So let's go back to our pre-built mow and trim route and look at the Occurrences tab to go about scheduling. So something like a mow and trim, you would want to schedule it out well in advance because you've got the rest of the season planned with your weekly visits. So to do this, you can schedule one by hitting add occurrence. And if it's something that's not going to be done every week, if it's maybe every month or does not have a regular recurrence pattern, perhaps something like fertilization where the first visit and the second visit and the third visit don't happen at equal intervals, you might just add the occurrences one by one and schedule them all independently. So that's an option there. But for something that's happening weekly, we probably want to schedule them all out right away. So we can hit Add Occurrences, and it's going to pull up this little pop-up right here. So this is where we now have to assign a crew. When a route occurrence is created, we need to put a crew on it. So I'm going to say mowing crew 1, makes the most sense. And I pick my first date. So we could say Thursday, right? So today is the first day that I want them to start mowing. And then I hit auto schedule, and then it populates all of my occurrences. So a few things about that. So we can see every Thursday for all the way until January 16th, 2020, has some mowing visits on it. There are 36 total occurrences. Now, the number next to each occurrence indicates how many services are going to be included on this occurrence. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's blue because it includes every single service that is on that waypoint list. So we scroll down a bit, and then we find that the number changes. It's orange now, and that's to give us a warning to say only 3 of the 6 visits that we put on that waypoint list are actually going to be a part of this route occurrence. So you can see here that Rita's not on there, Bill Beck is not on there, and that's because most likely these people ran out of visits. James, Lynn, Mark, and Anita, they probably had 36 visits on their contract. Everybody else probably only had 35. Or maybe they already had some visits completed before the route was built. Regardless, there were only 35 visits available that could be added up until January 9th. The other thing that could have happened could be those contracts ended sometime before January 16th. So if the contract ends, then it's not going to attempt to schedule any more visits automatically. And then going beyond that, everybody runs out of visits. The route is still open until March 1st, so the closest Thursday would be February 27th. But we don't have enough visits to keep going for that long, so we just run out and it says 0. So once I confirm this, I can hit schedule all, and the things to check would be, are we running out of visits, but also, do we want to change any of these dates? Maybe there's a stat holiday or something that determines that one of these Thursdays is a no-go and it needs to be moved to a different day. So you can individually move dates around before you schedule them, but you can also do it after the fact. You can reschedule stuff later if you need to. So let's hit schedule all, and the page is going to refresh. And we now have a full occurrence list. So these are all the times we're going to go and do all 6 of these properties, except for, of course, that last occurrence. This is every time we're going to go and perform this route. So I can expand this occurrence here to see, okay, here's all the properties that are being mowed as part of the May 16th occurrence. Mow and trim and bag grass clippings is a pretty long name. So there's a few things we can do here that are pretty neat, like edit the occurrence. We can say, you know what, our construction crew for some reason is going to take a hold of this. More likely we'd have a second mowing crew. So we can reassign the crew for an individual occurrence. We can also change the date. So if May 16th isn't going to happen anymore, we just change the date and hit update occurrence. You can print the route list. This is similar to the timesheet, very similar to the timesheet, and it has on it all of the visits that we are going to perform. So you might really only need to print out one of these if it's going to be the same every week. And this is just something that you would hand to the crew to let them know what they're going to be doing. So everything's going to be on their timesheet, of course. So if they have the mobile app, they could just look at it on their phone. But if you want to go old-fashioned with just a piece of paper, then you can print out this route list package. So as you can see here, we've got all of our properties in the order that we set them to be in. And then here's all the crew members that were a part of our Mo crew number 1. And then it keeps going. Here's details about each visit. If we wanted to include that, you could also print it out without showing work orders to not include details for every single visit, probably not necessary. Another cool thing is the visits waypoint button right here, the get directions button. So clicking on that is going to open Google Maps, and it's going to route you. It's going to say, here is how you're supposed to drive. I guess one of these addresses is incorrect. Was that Lynbrook Road? Let me take that off and see if it works better. There we go. So this is the order that we're supposed to drive. We're going to start here, go all the way around here, come back, and we're done. So that is going to give you just open Google Maps for you with all the properties listed one by one. And so that, of course, had the example, if a property that has an incorrect address that does not exist, it's not going to work properly here. If you want to delete an occurrence, you can also do that. It will remove the visits. So all those 6 visits on May 16th, it would unschedule them unless I decide to uncheck that, in which case they won't be a part of that route occurrence anymore. They won't be bundled together, but they will still be scheduled for the same date and time as before. And then unassign the visits. This is the crew assignment. So if I wanted them to still be assigned to Mo crew number 1, I would just leave that unchecked. So you can decide what you want to do there. Another thing you can do with the route would be updating it. So, you know, maybe a few weeks into the season, Jason Benavidez signs his contract and you want to bring him in here, or maybe you just change your mind about him not being a part of this route. So I can say, Jason, you are going to go, let's say last. There we go. So when I add or remove a property from this list, from this waypoint list, it's going to prompt me to save and update occurrences. All future visits will be rescheduled to match the route. So the change happens today. It happens the moment that you update the route, and it affects every future occurrence. So let's say this is a week from now, that May 16th visit, since it's in the past, that won't be affected, but all my future stuff will be affected. So I confirm, it does its thing behind the scenes. And so then we can see that all of our occurrences here now have 7 visits instead of 6, and that last one has 4. So that is how you build and schedule a weekly recurring route. And so that same philosophy would apply to daily, to bi-weekly, to monthly. It really depends upon the frequency that you built the original contract with. But a good example, just to mix things up a little bit, would be showing you something that has no recurrence pattern. Something like snow removal, where every visit is unpredictable. We can't predict ahead of time, at least not too far in advance, when exactly it's going to snow. So it needs to be flexible and needs to happen the moment you need it. So I've got this snow removal route already prepared for this example. As you can see, it's got a bunch of properties and no occurrences as of yet. Now this one is also set for the future. It's obviously the spring right now, so we're not going to be doing any snow removal, but maybe November starts to snow then, so our contract and therefore our routes also begin around then. This right here is saying that out of all these waypoints on the route, the earliest date that a contract starts is May 16th. So that would be because some of these people also have mowing, so their contract starts May 16th, but the snow removal doesn't start until November 1st. So if it starts snowing and, maybe it's 3 in the morning, you need to, initiate your crews, tell them to wake up and start their trucks. You'd come here and say add occurrence and, set it for today's date, or well, in this case, in the future, let's pretend it's November 4th, let's say. Yeah, we could just go ahead and get started. Now, this is one place you might do it. However, it's much more likely that you're going to be adding your routes from the calendar instead. So we'll go production scheduling. And so Fabio showed this last week when he did the scheduling session, but it's a good example to go over. So on the right-hand side of the calendar, there is our queue, right? So we can expand and collapse the queue. And here we can see, what's this crew? The mowing crew number 1 is in green. So the mow crew is selected, and here's all those routes that we just built. If I click on it, you can see, once it loads, that it's going to include all of the locations that we put onto our mow and trim route occurrence. So all 7 of those locations are going to be there. There we go. Yeah, so we can reschedule it, reassign it, even delete the occurrence from here. So you can do a lot of your management just from the calendar, and that's what makes the calendar pretty useful. So I can expand the queue, and I can hit this green plus button to add a route occurrence. So this is, again, if it's that situation, 3 in the morning, it's snowing heavily, you got to mobilize your crews. This is probably where you'd come to select all of your snow removal routes. So you might filter for snow removal service category here. Select all of your snow removal routes because you're probably going to have several. And once they're selected, you hit next. You pick the date, you pick the crew. Since it's today, we can just create it. Actually, we'd want to bump that forward to November. So let's say November, just because, yeah, it's not snowing right now. We hit create with timesheets or create. If I hit create, it's just going to add the route occurrence to the calendar, and that's that. No timesheets yet. But if the crew is going to be going out today, you may as well hit create with timesheets because you're going to need to create that timesheet anyway for the crew. So create with timesheets, it makes the route occurrence, adds it to the calendar. Let's jump over to November to get a look at that. There it is. So there's our route occurrence in the future. And there is a timesheet for it. And so that's why we have that little gear icon right there. It's got an in-progress timesheet that we just made. So yeah, that way the crew can open up their phones, load up their timesheet, and then start getting to work. So let's see, do I have anything else I want to cover? Update on the route, manual scheduling. Yeah, that is, that's everything for routing. It's pretty simple once you get the hang of it. The big question is, should this be added to a route or not? And once again, it's only really worthwhile to build a route if it's going to happen again and again.
Great. Thanks a lot, Jordan.
No problem.
If anyone has any questions at all, please feel free to email or call us. You can get us at support@DynaSCAPE.com or by phone 1-800-710-1900, and extension 1 gets you directly to our support team. So this session has been recorded, and a little bit later this afternoon it will be posted. All of the sessions to date have been posted here to DynaSCAPE.com/Manage360-Master-Class. So if you haven't been able to join us or haven't taken a look at the previous masterclass sessions, definitely do that, and you'll see just how comprehensive and such a deep dive we've been taking into how Manage360 works. Join us next week for webinar 13 in the series, where we'll be connecting Manage360 to QuickBooks. This is another in-depth session on the sync between Manage360 and QuickBooks Desktop. So that's a That's a qualifier, so please know that this is for QuickBooks Desktop. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks again, Jordan. Appreciate your time.
Cheers.